We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
You got to have the why, and we know our why. So
you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. Millions and millions of people have done this already. You can get help, you can get a roadmap, you can save a lot of time, money, and frustration. Welcome to the Value Add Podcast with K&K. Hi, welcome to the Value Add Podcast with K&K, Crystal and Kenny. Today we have Gretchen Kamp on the show, and we met Gretchen through social media, actually. She is a branding specialist, and she helped design the logo and the branding for 2 of our companies now, and we just think she is so amazing. So welcome, Gretchen.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
It's 3.
3, I guess. 3 companies. Okay. Yeah. See, I can't even keep track.
Yeah.
So many things. But yeah, so Gretchen's awesome. And we just wanted to invite Gretchen here today to kind of talk about how she sees branding. She really has a vision, and I think she can help anybody's business take it to the next level. So how did you even get started in branding?
So I went to San Diego State. That's what brought me down to San Diego. And my major was graphic design. And the last couple semesters, you kind of start getting to pick and choose more specifically in the graphic design field what you want to study. And I just immediately gravitated towards it. It just seemed really creative to me. It seemed a lot more interesting than other areas like editorial, where it's a lot of, layouts and stuff like that. I was just drawn to it. And so I focused on that my senior year at SDSU. And then that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, because you kind of have you're naturally, it's because we were looking around, and as soon as I saw your, even probably her Instagram page, I was like, and the designs, I was like, that's what we're looking for. I just, it just kind of clicks.
Awesome. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, but I think it must be kind of natural for you, because a lot of people try to do branding and marketing, like that stuff. It's not easy. It really isn't.
Right.
So,
well, I would say one of the things that we learned, and I would think, hopefully you agree, is when you're looking at doing branding or a logo, you really kind of have to find somebody who has a similar vibe and style to what you like.
Yes, that's definitely important. And I think there are people, there are definitely other designers who I feel are very talented, but they have maybe a different style than I do. And so that's definitely something to consider. And I always would recommend to a potential client, make sure you look at their portfolio before you hire them. It doesn't matter if they've, worked at the best job or they have the best references. You want to make sure that the aesthetic is on point for whatever it is that you're trying to do.
And I think because we've come a long way, we've never done marketing in our business, and that's why we're trying to kind of step up our game. We've been probably about as bad as you could possibly be. We get a 0.
If we could write a book, we're suck at marketing or we never do anything, we'd probably have the best selling book.
But we were always super lazy too about it. I think my first logo was designed by his friend before he even got big. Now he works for Microsoft or something. So we paid a couple $100, and we didn't want to pay any money. It was that's the last thing we wanted to spend money on. And kind of now looking at it, it's so stupid, because you're this is the thing that you're going to keep with your business for probably a decade.
Sure. Yeah, and that's always my goal, is 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that, and now it's stuck in your head. Yeah.
No, I agree, because I think people do, you probably deal with that, people do cheap out on certain things, and one of them's what does the brand matter? What does the image matter? Mm-hmm. And I think people that hire you, or because they care, they give a shit, and I think it's important.
Yeah, and I definitely I talked to a lot of people who are whoa, that's what you charge? That's crazy. I'm well, then that's not my ideal
We're
client.
Just not a fit.
It's just not, yeah. Because you can go and get, a logo for, $200. I've done, back in the day, I did a lot of $200 logos. It's how I, ended up kind of where I am. You have to practice and get good at it, like anything else, but...
And I think, too, you kind of get what you pay for. I mean, with a lot of things in life.
With everything. It's everything. Come on. It's not a lot of things. It's everything. It is.
Right.
I mean, there's certain things we all, in life, we all are going to we're going to cheap out on because we don't give a shit, right?
Right.
You just don't really care. And then there's other things where it's you could probably go buy this mug somewhere that has a logo on it that says Louis Vuitton and pay $500, or we just get it on wherever the hell you got it, Amazon, and pay $10.
And maybe the Louis Vuitton is going to last forever, and this is going to last for
you just want it to say Louis Vuitton if somebody picks it up because you want to be cool or whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So we met you through social media.
Right.
which is weird, right? This day. I think it's pretty common, and that's what's cool. And I think that's why also like having you here is important, because I think you're being active on it, which I 100% think everybody should be. How is that like helping your business? Like, are you like, are you using that? Like, are you kind of all in? What do you do to get business? But is like, what's the percentage that probably comes from social media?
That's a great question. So like I would say like 5 or 6 years ago when I was kind of just starting out, like my business started as a side hustle. I was working full time at San Diego Magazine as a graphic designer, and I was doing this on the side. And at that point it was all referrals. So it was just like, hey, people would reach out, I heard that you did so-and-so, and like, that was it. I mean, you know what a referral is. And then like gradually over time, as I've just put more effort into my own website in terms of SEO, obviously, social media is a big part of it now, but it's cool because I would say it's probably a pretty even breakdown between like referral, my website. So that would be like SEO, Instagram, Yelp, and did I say Google already?
No.
Yeah. So I would
Google AdWords.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't even advertise. Just people finding my website through like a Google search.
And do you do all your own stuff, or you have like
do.
some? Okay,
Yeah,
you do.
I love it.
And you taught yourself?
Yes.
How'd you teach yourself? Just YouTube?
Podcasts, a lot of just like books, and I mean, there's so much information online for free that like I couldn't even really pinpoint. I mentioned Jenna Kutcher. I've been listening to her podcast and reading her blog a lot, but that's only really been within the last few months I discovered her. So I've been implementing a lot of her strategy now, but
I totally looked her up last night after your post.
Yeah,
so.
She's great. But yeah, it's great though. It's really, really nice to be in a place where like I said, obviously the referral business is always good. And there's definitely something to say, like to be said for someone who comes through a referral. It's usually a friend of a friend or something. So you kind of know like they're probably going to be a legit lead, where, versus like Yelp, you get some pretty random inquiries. And, but yeah, just to be at that place where I feel like it's pretty like spread across those different platforms makes me feel like I'm doing that stuff at least well enough to keep myself booked.
That's good.
Yeah.
And yeah, the nice thing about a referral, especially in your business, is hopefully they'll like set an expectation. The person like,
right.
This is why I hired you. I wasn't going for like, can I get the cheapest,
exactly.
the right. best bang for my buck? It's like, I wanted something like you said that can last 10 years, 20 years, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
There's already some trust there, right? Cause
exactly. Yeah. It's like, they've already kind of been vetted. Whereas the other, people that, but I've had some amazing, I mean, you guys are an example. I met some really, really cool, very legit people through Instagram.
That's awesome.
Through Google, I don't do, well, we'll go into that in a minute. I was going to talk about other social media platforms, but.
Yeah. No, it's, I was just saying too, like you're a lot more active on Instagram now too. And it's like, I found, like we were saying, my chiropractor, we found you through Instagram. And it's because when I see somebody else mention you, like I think it was Skinny Confidential that we found you through,
right.
Mentioned you. And then I go like stalk your page and I start looking at your posts, and we kind of already felt like we knew each other. I felt like right. I'm totally, I'll
You're
be
such a stalker.
I'm such a stalker. I just like to kind of like, yes, I just want to see what people are doing and stuff. And so I already felt like I kind of knew you a little bit. And so it was funny because when we met, Kenny was like, oh my God, this is totally the girl. Like you guys could like be friends. And it's kind of like we have a similar style. Like I just knew it from already looking at your page. And then I felt like I knew you a little bit just from seeing you kind of like interact.
Right.
So that's, I think.
Well, she walked in here and like she saw our office. So like we said, vibe is really important.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like even if people are doing real estate, there's certain people are like, they wanted like, hey, we want to cheap out on this and that. We're like, yeah, we're probably not the person to hire because we like to do things right. We're not going to half-ass apartment, but we just don't.
Totally.
So we're just like, we can give you somebody else that wants to do the,
Right. Totally. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to ask you like why branding is so important, because again, like those people who want to cheap out and they don't think it's like an important part of their business, like what's your kind of like 2-minute spiel on why it's so important?
I mean, I'm such a believer in first impressions. I really think that you only get one, and I think that it better be damn good, because everything is oversaturated. There's a million people doing everything. So if you, like for example, if say you saw me on the Skinny Confidential, but then you look at my Instagram and I'm posting a bunch of like hideous branding or ugly, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that was the first impression. Like then you get it one time. And usually I think for a couple seconds.
Yeah.
Like if I'm looking at, if I'm looking, for something online, like if I go to a website and it doesn't look super nice, I'm immediately clicking away and going somewhere else that does. So, you know, I think that's really kind of what it comes down to. And then there's also the side of like wanting, you know, to convey the personality of, you know, whether it's a business or a blog or whatever it is you're doing. You know, there's a million different ways to portray yourself. And I think that your brand identity is a huge part of that. From the colors, you know, there's going to be certain colors that are going to attract younger people, older people, and same with, you know, fonts and all the other elements. So, to me, it's your ultimate first impression. And like I said, you want it to be damn good, or why even like do whatever it is that you're doing.
I agree. And I think that people now, there's so many different options, and everybody's kind of having to put their best foot forward and put themselves out there. Everybody's so accessible now. So you kind of have to figure out how you're going to stand out from everyone else. It's just not like 100%. We're kind of going away from that, like finding someone in the newspaper or you know, the mom and pop sort of thing. No, but there's like a lot. I know,
it's just funny that
in our business, especially, there's a lot of the like mom and pops, we call them, like super old school. Like they probably will never look at Instagram or whatever. But even still, like even though they're not on Instagram or wherever, there's still like a vibe. Like even everything that you kind of put out there, you have to try and attract people now. Because again, like why would somebody come to me over going to some other company or go to you versus going to someone else? Like we kind of have to showcase that. And I mean, it's so critical now more than ever, I feel like.
No, I think you said it before, or whoever said it, like especially now with social media and stuff, and that's what we're doing. Like when we said, okay, like we sold a business, a property manager, we're like, we got rid of that. We're like, we're going to actually do marketing. But I was like, I don't want to do it traditionally. So that's why I went and saw Gary Vee, and I was like, I want to do it differently. Yeah. And when I saw it, when Chris was like, you got to check this Gary Vee guy out. And I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. I like his approach, how you use social media, because I can do it my way.
Yes.
I don't have to like, here's a postcard and you only get 5 letters. It doesn't work. So you can like, whatever you want to put on social, that's who you're going to be. And that's why I think it's like you said, what you put on there, you might not really think about, but the bigger you get, people are going to go back and keep looking at all this stuff. So if you're super inconsistent and all over the fucking place, you're going to have a problem.
Right.
And so I think even with messages that we talk about, so people can easily identify with you, build a rapport pretty quickly. And with branding, they're obviously going to look at your stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Like if you suck, I mean, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. The way that social media has come, and social media has had such a huge role in like the way that people are now focusing more on becoming a personal brand versus like, you know, we've talked about this before, like merging, you know, like it used to be like, okay, here's my business Instagram, here's my personal one. Like now I'm just like, it's one and the same. Like I am who I am, and you know, this is what I do for work, but this is also me as a person. And I think that's become, and that goes, you know, ties in with Gary Vee and
remember when
all
like
the influencers that are.
Remember when like you would have or like let's say you had a job working at San Diego Magazine maybe or before that, and you're like, I don't want people to get my Facebook account because I don't want them to see.
Oh yeah,
it's so
it's
opposite
all like
now.
College stuff and just whatever. Yeah, no, it's like exactly, it's the exact opposite. It was like, don't let anybody, you know that I have. That
I went and got drunk last night or, you know, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it's so funny because now it's like the polar opposite. It's kind of like, well, here's me, take it or leave it.
Exactly.
You know? So,
but I kind of love that.
I love that.
It's more honest and.
If you don't like it, then don't follow somebody. I mean.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Before we kind of jump into like, I want to dive in a little bit more like when you do branding, how you kind of like put your like with, hey, I need you branding for this cup, like how you approach it. Like if somebody doesn't have the money, right? Because a lot of people just don't have the money to hire you. Yeah. It's just the reality. They're like, I'm not going to rack up the credit card. I don't have the money, but I want to start this little company, and everybody's trying to be an entrepreneur or the side hustle or something like you did. Yeah. Any recommendations for somebody just as like, you know, with branding and stuff like that you can recommend how somebody could just try to get a logo or their identity, you know, like you call it your identity brand, like built like cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like my advice would be rather than trying to go cheap on it, because there are definitely discount options. I mean, there's websites where you can go and like pay, I don't even know, like $100 and get some, I'm guessing it's like clip art put together by somebody. Yeah. But what I've kind of done, because I've definitely talked to people before, they're like, it's a little out of my budget. I am flexible. Like I'll have people do like a payment plan, you know, depending on the size of the project. But like, for example, say it's like a $5,000 project. I'm like, okay, pay me $1,000 a month for the next 5 months, and like we'll do the project at the normal pace.
That's cool.
And that's worked out really well with a few people. It's a little bit, you know, there's always a little bit of risk there.
Oh, for sure.
But, you know, I have people sign contracts, and I hope for the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's one option. And then I've also had people be like, I'm going to save up and come back. And I've had people do that like 6 months later. They're like, okay, I'm going to set aside, now I know how much it costs. I'm going to set aside this much of my paycheck, and they come back later. So, I mean, those would be more of the ideal approach in my mind. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely, or I guess the alternate, if you really just don't you just know you don't want to spend like what my price point is, you could find good designers who just are less experienced and who maybe don't really like necessarily know their worth yet. Sounds bad, but like I said,
it's reality.
I did a ton of $200 logos, 6 years ago, because at the time I was stoked. I was working full time, and like these were random little freelance gigs. And I was like, dude, like $200 here and there. Like I was stoked. So I think, you just have to do some.
You do so much more than just a logo, though.
Right.
Like, because we had that right before you. I was just like not happy with the direction we were going with our logo. And then when we hired you, I was like, holy shit, like this is way more. Like I got colors and fonts and, idea boards and
it's a whole system.
Vibe. I got everything. So the thing is like, too, when people are coming to you, I think you provide something that people who aren't in your business weren't even expecting to get.
Yeah.
And then they get it and they're like, oh, this is what I paid for. You're like, no, you're not paying whatever $5,000 for a logo. You're getting like all these other things that are going to help you like for the future with your business and any kind of like marketing branding that you're trying to do.
No, and it's nice when you send it off to somebody that's like designing shirts. I'm like, oh shit, this is like, they know it's professional, which is a compliment to you. So with that, like being said, like quickly, I know you could talk about it for probably an hour. Like when we hired you, for example, I know there's some things you asked from us, but how do you start? How do you back into it? How do you get your mind there? Like how do you create it all? Like how do you, and what do people get with you? You know?
So if you're talking specifically about I call it the ultimate brand identity package. Okay.
Is that what we got or no?
Yes. That's
okay,
what
cool.
we got. I don't know. It might have changed the name since then, but it's
the
same.
It's the ultimate.
So yeah, I'd like to put it kind of in a nutshell. I start with a little bit of, research. So that's essentially that long ass questionnaire that you guys filled out where I ask about both, aesthetic stuff and also like business goals, stuff like that. But just so that I really have a very firm understanding of your business, what you're trying to do, why you're hiring me, as well as like the visual direction that you want it to go. Okay. And then I will typically have clients do a collaborative Pinterest board, which means they're pinning stuff, I'm pinning stuff. And that's mostly because I really think a picture is 1,000 words. A lot of times people know what type of typography they like or imagery, but they don't know how to describe it, or even colors. Like they're like, oh, well, I like blue, but it's like blue could be that, or it could be, a million different colors. So that's where the Pinterest board comes into play. Mm-hmm. And then as far as the rest of the process, I've just really kind of been fine tuning it over the last like 5 or 6 years. So now it's really kind of set in stone. Like everybody, no matter what the business is, like everybody pretty much gets the same thing. And then if they want to swap something out, that's fine. So like for like say somebody doesn't want a letterhead, but they're doing a restaurant, so they need a menu. Like I'm flexible in terms of stuff like that.
That's true.
But as far as like the basic like bread and butter of it, you're getting your logo, variations of the logo, the color palette, the supplemental fonts, patterns, textures, and then a set of icons. So that's kind of like what's in.
I think you did business cards. And
yes, and then business card. Yeah, there's more to it than that, but that's like when I'm talking about like the actual brand elements, it would be that. And then yes, I do include the business cards. You get a style guide. You get all the information so that if you need to hire another designer, even though I don't know why you would, but if you want to use another designer, you have all that like at your fingertips, so you don't have to like be trying to figure out like, oh well, what's like I have like the numbers and everything for the colors and provide you with the actual files for the font so you can install them yourself.
I mean, you did some shirts for me because it's like you just think like, oh, go on and do shirts, but honestly, like I didn't want to spend 17 hours to figure out how to do a shirt. Right. And once you trust somebody, it's pretty easy to be like, she'll just do it better than I can anyways. And save.
Well, that was the first thing we asked Gretchen to do was like a t-shirt.
We did a t-shirt.
For us.
It's kind of like a test, and then you're like, oh, I thought we did a t-shirt. I was kind of like just testing.
Yeah, no, that's actually really smart, and people don't do that very often, but that's a really good idea. To, like,
because a lot of it was not even just to test what you do. It's like how fast you do it, how you do it. It was the whole thing, And then when I realized, okay, you're a professional.
Like how someone even communicates.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you're professional, I'm like, okay, we can work with this person. We can refer because Crystal, that's what you were looking for too. So we wanted to move.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had never I don't think I've ever actually I mean, not that I was trying so hard before, but I mean, with the logos that we've done and like the business, like different marketing people we've met with over the years, like I don't think we've ever met anybody that like we had as good of a vibe with, like ever.
Thank you.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great compliment.
So quickly, like what I was kind of fascinated when we started working with you was the whole Pinterest thing and how like I know you're really big on the Pinterest and pushing that just because there's a lot of value there for your business.
Right.
Besides Pinterest, because I want to talk about that for a minute, what's your favorite social platform right now? What are you mainly using? And then after that, can you kind of dive into like, I feel like when I talked to you, I was like, wow, I think people really undervalue Pinterest the way you're describing it to us.
Sure. So I'm the only 2 social platforms I use at all now are Instagram and Pinterest.
Wow.
I'm no longer on Facebook. I never used Snapchat. I never did Twitter. So
Do you even have a LinkedIn account?
I do have a LinkedIn account. But that's
You're not super active. It's like a resume,
I'm
basically.
not on it. Yeah, it's just kind of like if somebody wants to look me up and like see like, oh, did she ever have
You're like, I'm
jobs?
not going to add Johnny, the realtor. Sorry.
I can't even say I've logged into it in the last like 2 years. Like, I don't even know what's on there.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I do have that. But yeah, as far as Pinterest goes, just based on some podcasts I've listened to and some blogs I've read, I felt like there was kind of a missed opportunity. I was using Pinterest in the way I think most people do, which was like pinning recipes, pinning cute outfits. And then I would definitely, you know, like pin, like just things that were inspiring to me in terms of design. But I wasn't using it to promote my own business at all. I was just kind of using it as like a way to save stuff in a way that'd be easy to access. But then I started, you know, through these people I listen to, podcasts, etc., realizing that if you are creating content, which I was kind of already doing in terms of like my Instagram, and also I have a blog, like to be more active on there, but I am writing stuff pretty regularly. So I started creating pins that link to my website. So, you know, there's like a specific ratio, and then, you know, so say if I write a new blog post, I think the most recent one I wrote was 5 questions to ask a branding specialist before you hire them. So I would just start creating pins with like either a picture of me or just, you know, text only, and create like 5 or 6 different ones, then put them in there, have it linked to that part of my blog, and then add a bunch of keywords, and basically just do that anytime I create content. And then that's how people will, you know, say someone's looking for branding or just whatever they might be looking for on there, they come across that, boom, they're on your website. Next thing you know, like if they like, you know, you can, from the blog, you can go to the portfolio, and if they're interested, then they can reach out that way. And I have noticed, it's crazy. Like I forget the number, but at one point I looked at my Google Analytics in the last couple months, and it was like 10% of the traffic to my website was from Instagram, which I was shocked how low that was. And like 70% of it was from Pinterest. And I was like, damn. Wow.
Well, it's true, because I use Pinterest for the exact thing that you used to use it for, like pinning recipes, or like if I need to try to find a cute outfit, or like holiday decorations, or like how to style my bookshelf or something, like things like that. And then you always click through.
Yeah, you always click through because it goes straight to the website.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'm always hoping, because actually I hate when you click something on Pinterest and I want to like buy it, and it doesn't link you to something.
Broken.
Yes.
And they're getting better. At least what I've heard is that they're getting better at like getting rid of like that. So like really cleaning that stuff out so that doesn't happen.
Because they're understanding the value in it now, right?
Because they want people using it to, like, whether it doesn't, you know, like for me, it's like I'm a service-based business, and like I want it to link to my blog because I want people to like basically attracted to that content marketing. But like, you know, it's the same thing if say it's somebody, you know, puts a product on there, like you want it to go to the right place so you can buy it. Like you don't just be wasting people's time looking at stuff that they can't buy or do, or just leading nowhere.
Right.
So. I remember like Houston over something, I don't know how long, when you posted our stuff up there, you emailed something, I don't pay attention. It was like 29,000 views. You're like, holy smokes. I was like, holy crap.
The Pacific brand board is like one of my top viewed and like
so funny.
That's crazy.
Pins. So I think that's what I sent you.
And that was like a week or days or something. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy.
What do you think like businesses are missing with branding in your opinion? Like I mean, I know you're doing I know you're doing restaurants, you've done like like I know you're doing restaurants and like some fashion stuff and like hairdressing and bars and things like that. Like when you walk into business, I know you're looking at their stuff, right? Because you know you are. You're like, look at this thing sucks. Just like we look at the like cheap floors, and that's how we are. We're just different. So what do you think people are missing when it comes to branding?
I mean, so like the larger companies are nailing it, right? You go into Apple, it's like, of course,
they can afford it.
Everything is perfect. Yeah. But I would say like if it's like a smaller business, like a restaurant, I would just say like cohesiveness. You know, you see maybe like one menu is in one font and another thing is in another, and you've got like, you know, some colors here and some colors there, and they don't match the wall, stuff like that. Just like where like the graphic design might not necessarily be matching the visuals or the physical space. Just like inconsistencies, like I would say is probably the one thing. And that's where like with the package, having all those other elements is really important because it prevents you from having those like trying to kind of guess every time. Like anytime someone's designing something, they're like, oh, well, they don't have a style guide, so I'm just going to use this. And then, you know, the next thing is like has a totally different look and things get lost. And that's where you start looking really immature.
I never really thought about that, but because you gave us that style guide, even when we're doing videos or things, it's like I give that style guide to whoever's like doing like the design for that to say like make sure you use this font because I have to stop myself now. And
no,
go, like,
that's really smart.
These are the fonts we have to use.
Yeah.
You know?
No, she's now gotten stricter on it because, like you said, everything looks great, and you're like, this looks like crap.
Well, it's like we didn't take the time to go through this whole process,
right? Exactly, to not use it,
right?
Yeah,
right.
Not implement it for sure.
Yeah. So, but it does like you kind of have to stop yourself and think like, no, I don't. And it's kind of cool though because it takes the guesswork out. You're like, no, I don't need to look for the perfect font. It's right there.
Exactly, and it seriously makes it easier. Like even for myself as a designer, like if I did a brand identity for, you know, a restaurant and then they hire me to do a menu, like I don't have to like rethink about that. It's already been determined. So it definitely, it saves a lot of time.
Very cool. So like what are some of your biggest struggles? Because one of the things that we didn't mention just yet is you've been in business for what, like 3.5 years by yourself.
3.5 years this month by myself. Yes.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship.
So, then all of us, like as being kind of business owners, if there's somebody's like looking to become an entrepreneur, I just kind of want to know, like, especially because everybody says it's like such a fancy word right now. Everybody wants to be like an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But what are kind of the biggest struggles that you had in starting your business?
Sure. I've been super, super lucky. I don't know if like luck is the right word. I feel like I set myself up to do pretty well. And I also did this once prior and failed in the sense that like, so I had been working full time shortly after college and I didn't save any money, but I was starting to get side jobs. And so I got really like cocky and was like, I could do this. So I went all in. Like I had like, you know, $500 in my bank account. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. I quit my job, but like, whatever, you know, I'm actually kind of glad I did it because I think then the second time around, I just like really knew what to do. But yeah, so I actually made it. I was doing pretty well for like a year. And then I had like a couple slow months, which still always happens. But when you have nothing saved and you have 2 slow months, I'm like, okay, I'm like screwed. I need to go get a fucking job. So that's how I ended up at San Diego Magazine. And that was, you know, a really cool experience too. I was there for about a year. But the whole time I was there, like even from, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but whatever. They're cool. From the day I started that job, I knew that I was saving money to eventually quit. So
they know.
They probably knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. I learned stuff there. And, but yeah, so I kind of knew that I wanted to just, you know, go back to freelancing. It's just, you know, a lot of
so you saved up more money.
So that time I saved $10,000 and then I was like, I can have 2 slow months now and I'm not gonna like
what
die.
do I always tell people?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
That's really my biggest advice. People always ask like, oh, I have a side hustle, I'm gonna quit my job, and they're always like, what should I do? And I'm like, I can't tell you like how to like run your business or do this and that, the other, but save $10,000. I can tell you that.
Yeah, like have a plan.
Yeah, like just exactly.
6 months expenses are a plan. And like no, that's just.
Yeah.
I mean,
Chris, and that $10,000 is not gonna last very long if you don't have a lot of business already too. Like, but that's like I'm just saying as like, you know, and people's number would be different depending on their lifestyle or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
But like just for me, that was like the cushion that I needed, that I knew. And I had, you know, I had enough consistent clients that I was like, you know, not even trying to touch that. I just knew I needed to have something there so that I wouldn't end up back in the exact same position where I felt like I had to go and take the first job I could get, which was a terrible feeling. It happened to be a very cool job at a good company. Yeah. So I was very lucky there, but that isn't always the case.
Yeah, totally. And I
That's
think
smart. I mean, that's good you learned that, because a lot of people that are, I mean, Crystal's been, which a lot of people know, she's been on her own since she's 19, self-employed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Yeah,
And
that's
doing,
impressive.
and she's done really, really well. She had a lot of success, but you know, I always tell people, I'm like, my number one rule is if you're going to go out is have 6 months or they're like, what? I'm like, trust me. And the other thing is keep your damn overhead low. Just live like you're poor. And when you start making money, do not bring it up. Just
keep your lifestyle at where
focus
it is
more
as
on your
much as you
business
can.
and just keep going. And then one day you can step it up, you know, and
That's actually great advice too. And that's something I definitely like lived by that, but I haven't really thought about that as advice before, but it's so true. Like I didn't get an office space until May of this year. So I was in business for like nearly 3 years, and I was working at home, even though like I could afford the space. I wanted to keep everything.
And I see you run out your desk and stuff because you're smart. Like,
yeah.
Like you just, I don't know. That's why I tell people, just keep your overhead low because, you know,
and even now, like my workspace is very, very
That's
affordable.
awesome.
Like I could probably be paying 2 to 3 times what I'm paying, and I'm just like, nope, I want it. I want everything to be.
Well, and that's the thing
awesome.
too, because I think when you're also a new business, and even as your business grows and you've even had more time as a business owner, but you're always having to kind of reinvest in your business. So it's like you really kind of need to keep those funds there as well to kind of keep investing in your growth, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, the last thing you want to do is like go into a bunch of debt starting a new business when, you know, the whole point is you're trying to like go the opposite way.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So do you have any tips aside from like saving money?
Not financial.
Yeah.
I feel like that, I don't know. It's hard. Like I love seeing like this trend of people being more entrepreneurial, starting businesses, but I feel like for each person, it's kind of your own path, and it would be hard for me to give any advice other than like the financial stuff, because I feel like what might work for somebody might totally not work for somebody else. Like
I agree with that.
You know, even I could be like, oh well, you know, I use Instagram and Pinterest, but for somebody else, like
Facebook, they're killing
might be
it on
like,
Facebook,
or like whoever their demographic is, they might like wherever their target audience, they might not be on Instagram and Pinterest. Like I know, you know, the type of clients that I get for the most part, I have a lot of female clients. Like they are definitely on Instagram and Pinterest for sure.
Yeah. I agree. I think it depends on the business. And I think to that end, you just like whatever business it is that you're going into, you really have to do that research because, for example, like our business isn't going to do as well on Instagram because we're a financial company.
Yeah.
So like we're better off on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
or even LinkedIn. Like that
and
might
LinkedIn.
be where to focus.
Right.
We're going to do it all, but I agree.
Right. Like we love Instagram, so that's why we'll do more of it.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily going to be like growing the business as much as maybe Facebook would, for example.
Yeah, that totally makes
So
sense.
I think,
and that's the thing with social media too. For a long time, I was trying to be on every platform. I was like, Twitter like came out. I'm like, oh God, now I have to do this. And then like another Snapchat came out. I'm like, oh, now I have to do this. And then at some point, I read something that someone was like, you know, like especially if you're using it for business, which is my primary use of it. Pick the ones that you like, pick the ones that that your target audience is, like focus on those and like screw the rest. So that's why now like I'm not on Facebook anymore. I'm not on, you know, anything else and these two are working for me, you know, really well. So,
and ideally, like I know Gary Vee and everybody else will say like be on every platform, but like what people don't see are the like 26 people behind Gary Vee that are like working on.
No,
you know,
just literally just for him when I was there, it's like 26 people work for him, and people are like,
and that was in May, so who knows how many he has.
If you have 26 people doing your social media,
of course, you should be on every platform. So
100%. But when you're like kind of running the show yourself, it's like, you know,
that's funny,
right? I think that's the thing I think people have to kind of wrap their heads around too, because that was the one thing, like for example, when we wanted to start this podcast, I like went back to some of the people that we really adore, like the Gary Vee for one, and Skinny Confidential. Like I literally went back to Kenny went back to Gary Vee's very first podcast,
wine, when he did the
YouTube videos. And then I went back to Skinny Confidential's like very first podcast. Yeah. And you just get to see like, wow, they've come a long way since then. And like, it's okay that I'm smaller and I can't have like the big production in the beginning. Like we'll get there, but they didn't start there either. No, we all started.
That's what I tell people. You got to start, right? 100%. Like when I was with Gary, the biggest fight is, just fucking get started. He's like, that's it. Start. Quit talking about it. That's what you say.
Entrepreneurs, that would
like keep your job, do your side hustle. If you're scared to work hard, then you're never going to be an entrepreneur anyways. It's too much work. Then just stay 9 to 5. You know what I mean? So to wrap up, like, so what's next for Gretchen? What you're focused on? Like, what's over the next year or two? What do you see?
Yeah, so I'm really, really like happy with where things are at right now. I'm actually working on 3 restaurants at the moment, which is super
Wow.
exciting. That's gonna like
There's so many
almost
coming in,
double.
too.
Some
Like-
really trendy, cool restaurants
Thank
too.
you.
There's so many coming in.
Like
too.
Barbusa, we love Barbusa,
I
and
love
you did all their
Barbusa.
stuff.
That's
Yeah.
still like
Yeah,
one of my
so
favorite
good.
places. So yeah, so that's really exciting. I guess one of the things that's kind of on my like goals list for the beginning of next year is I was approached by Skillshare to start teaching classes on there. So
Sweet.
I really want to do that. I would probably be teaching like Photoshop, Illustrator, and then potentially maybe like some social media stuff too.
Good for you.
But yeah, they reached out like a couple months ago. I immediately was like, yes, I'm going to do it. And then I just kind of booked up with client stuff. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to have to like actually carve out time to do that and make it a priority. But the cool thing is like once that's done, it will be passive income because you just record the class like once
cool.
and then you make money every time somebody watches it.
Yes.
So
Sales funnel.
I'm like, I'm like, this is what I need to do. But so that's definitely
Nazi.
at the top of my list for next year. But other than that, I mean, just, you know, kind of continue with what I'm doing, you know, obviously keep trying to get, you know,
More clients.
I don't even want to say bigger and better clients
Yeah.
because my clients are great. It's like, I don't even want to like insult them in that way, but you know what I mean?
That's cool.
Like, yeah.
That's really exciting. The Skillshare is really cool because I know we're wrapping up, but the one thing that Kenny and I were just listening to was about like sales funnels and
I was
ClickFunnels
telling-
and all
we were-
that. So you definitely
I was
have to check
yapping
them
her ear
out
off.
once you get your
I was
course
talking
set
to your ear
up.
off about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
creating more like
Yeah.
materials that you can sell again for, you know.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Well, thanks,
thanks
so
for
much
coming in.
on.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Okay,
This was
cool.
really fun.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.